You were the kid who finished the exam before anyone else even turned the page. Teachers didn't just grade your work, they used it as the gold standard for the rest of the class. Your parents bragged about your report card at every family dinner, and you grew up wearing the super gifted label like a suit of armor. And for a long time, you believed the hype. So why does it feel like you can't get anything done today? That super smart label you had in school felt like a superpower because it opened doors and earned you constant praise. It made you feel like the world was already yours, but somewhere between graduation and real life, that label seemed to have quietly turned into a cage. But here is the truth. This isn't laziness or a lack of talent, so stop beating yourself up. It is something much deeper and more biological, something baked into the very way your brain was trained to operate. In the next few minutes, you'll understand exactly why your brain is burning out, and I'm going to give you the protocol to rewire it before you waste another year of potential. Lesson 1. That super smart label was a lie. Here is where the glitch started. Researcher Carol Dweck spent decades studying why some people crumble under pressure while others thrive, and her findings come down to what you were praised for as a kid. If you were constantly told, "You're so smart," your brain filed that away as a fixed identity rather than a skill you developed. You weren't someone who worked hard to figure things out. You were simply super smart as a baseline state of being. That distinction wrecked your internal wiring in ways you probably haven't fully reckoned with yet. When the school system praises effortless performance, the brain builds a dangerous equation where struggle equals not smart. Every time you flew through a test without studying or just figured out a concept before the teacher finished the sentence, that equation got reinforced. Struggle was for the other kids, but it wasn't for you. Then real life showed up and ruined the party. Suddenly the problems don't have clean answers, and the work doesn't come easily anymore. You sit down to do something genuinely difficult, and within 60 seconds your brain fires an old alarm telling you this shouldn't be this hard. Because of that alarm, you don't start, or you quit the moment things get messy. You might even stay busy doing easy tasks that feel productive, but don't actually move the needle. That's not laziness, that's a self-protection protocol. Your brain is running a defense script it learned in 3rd grade, and it's still running it right now. The operating system under the hood was coded for a classroom, optimized for short sprints and gold stars every 45 minutes. You take that operating system into a career or a business where the stakes are real, and the feedback is ambiguous. The system doesn't just lag, it crashes. This doesn't happen because the hardware is bad, but because the software was never written for this specific track. Most gifted kids respond to this crash by trying to force themselves to be more disciplined or by waking up earlier. They treat it as a motivational problem and try to will their way through it, but it never works because they're fighting the symptom rather than the source. The burnout you're feeling right now is just the smoke. The actual fire is something called an identity threat response. Your brain isn't tired from working too much, but it is exhausted from protecting a label that the real world challenges every single day. Now listen, this goes deeper than just feeling stuck. What this label actually does to your biology under pressure is a different story entirely, and that is exactly where we are going next. Lesson 2. The thought that the issue is burnout is not true. Let's kill the biggest myth about burnout right now. Most people picture corporate employees who work themselves into the ground, pulling hundreds of hours per week with zero sleep until they finally collapse. That is one version of burnout, but it isn't yours. For gifted kids, burnout looks completely different because you aren't exhausted from doing too much. You are exhausted from performing an identity that no longer fits the current you. Every single day you show up and try to be the person that the gifted label promised you'd become. You try to be sharp, effortless, and ahead of the curve, but reality pushes back every time. That massive gap between who you're supposed to be and what's actually happening on your screen requires a staggering amount of energy to maintain. It is a constant, silent drain on your battery that never actually stops. Now listen to the biology, because this explains everything. When your brain perceives a threat to your identity, it triggers your cortisol system just like it would for a physical predator. This is the same fight-or-flight circuitry your ancestors used to outrun wolves, and that system was designed for short, intense bursts. You sit down to work and wonder why your brain feels like wet concrete, but that isn't a sign of weakness. That is a biochemical trap you accidentally triggered by tying your self-worth to a performance standard you can't consistently meet. And the loop only gets tighter from there. A difficult task fires the threat response, so you naturally delay starting. That delay starts feeling like a personal failure, and that failure whispers the one thing your entire identity was built to avoid. Maybe you aren't actually that smart. So, you avoid the task even longer to protect yourself, which produces more feelings of failure and deepens the avoidance loop. It is a closed circuit that tightens every single time you go around it. High achievers crash the hardest inside this loop for a reason that is almost cruel. The bigger the gap between your self-image and your actual output, the more cognitive energy you burn just managing that psychological friction. You haven't even started the work yet, and you're already mentally spent. The gifted kid who was told they were destined for greatness carries the widest gap of all, which means they pay the steepest tax before they write a single word or make a single call. You cannot grind your way out of this. Applying more discipline to a broken system just burns more fuel without moving the needle. The fix isn't more effort, it's a full system replacement. But there is a specific cost most people never account for before they even attempt that upgrade, and that's what we're breaking down next.
Before we continue, if you find value in this video, even if just a little, please subscribe and hit the like button to help us continue to provide more insightful educational videos. Let's grow beyond limits together. Your support is highly appreciated. Thank you, my friend. Let's continue.
Lesson 3. The high cost of waiting for the perfect start. Here is the cost nobody talks about. Before the burnout, before the avoidance spiral, and before the cortisol flood, there is a quieter drain happening every single day. It doesn't announce itself with a bang, it just quietly bleeds you out while you're sitting there, convinced you're just about to start. I call this the perfectionism tax, and for gifted kids, it is almost universal. Here is the protocol of how it works. When your entire identity is built around being the smart one, being wrong becomes unbearable. It isn't just uncomfortable, it feels like an existential threat. A wrong answer doesn't just mean you made a mistake, it means the label is a lie. It means the teachers were wrong, the gold stars were fake, and the version of yourself you've been protecting all these years was never real. That is a catastrophic psychological price tag to attach to a single error. Your brain does exactly what any rational system does when the downside is that extreme. It refuses to play the game. You don't call it refusing to play, of course. You tell yourself you aren't feeling ready yet, or that you're still doing research. You claim you're just waiting until you have more time to do the job properly. But if we strip away the fancy language, the reality is that your brain has calculated that not starting is safer than starting and being wrong. The task stays perfect in theory because you never actually run the test. You never have to find out if you're actually good enough, and as long as you don't start, the label stays intact. That is the tax, and you pay it every single day you don't start. Every project that sits in a draft folder, every email that remains unsent, and every idea you keep refining is the price your brain charges to keep your identity safe. And here is the brutal part. The tax compounds. The longer you wait, the more weight the project accumulates, which makes starting feel like it needs to be even more perfect. What began as a small hesitation quickly turns into a project you haven't touched in 4 months. Think about what that actually costs you at scale. It isn't just about the unfinished project, it's about the confidence that erodes when you watch yourself fail to do the thing you said you'd do. Your self-image quietly degrades every time you delay another decision. There is a version of your career that simply doesn't exist because you spent years polishing a pitch instead of actually making one. Perfectionism is not the same thing as having high standards, so stop letting it wear that disguise. High standards mean you do the work, and then you refine it. Perfectionism means you don't do the work at all and call the waiting preparation. One produces results, while the other produces a very impressive collection of unfinished drafts. The 5-step protocol in the next section is built specifically to break this cycle. We aren't going to use motivation. We're going to install a completely different operating system. Lesson 4. The 5-step system identity upgrade protocol. Here is the actual fix. I'm giving you 5 steps with zero motivational fluff and no believe in yourself jargon. This is a concrete protocol designed to replace the glitchy software that's been crashing your system. Step 1 is the audit. You need to identify the specific beliefs running in the background before you can shut them down for good. These thoughts don't announce themselves loudly. Instead, they whisper in the back of your mind. You'll hear things like, "I should find this easier than I do," or "If I'm struggling, something must be wrong with me." Maybe you tell yourself you used to pick things up faster than you do now. Write these down on actual paper right now, because naming a belief drags it out of the subconscious and into a space where you can interrogate it. Until you do that, it runs like malware, invisible, automatic, and quietly sabotaging every single work session. Step 2 is the scorecard swap. Your internal scorecard currently asks one question at the end of every day. Was I smart enough? That question has no clean answer in a world where real problems are genuinely difficult, so you need to replace it entirely. The new question is, did I learn something today? This single shift moves your metric from performance to process. This isn't just a mindset trick, it's neuroplasticity operating in real time. Every time your brain is rewarded for effort rather than outcome, it reinforces a new neural pathway and starves the old one. Dopamine starts attaching to the act of showing up rather than the result of being impressive. Run that protocol consistently, and the brain physically rewires itself. That's not a metaphor, that is pure neuroscience. Step 3 is reframing struggle as a signal. When a task gets frustratingly hard, your old operating system reads that friction as a warning sign to stop. The new operating system reads the exact opposite. Difficulty is the precise moment new neural pathways are being constructed in your gray matter. That friction isn't the obstacle standing before the work. It is the work itself. When you hit the wall, say it out loud if you have to. This is where it's supposed to feel hard. That one reframe short-circuits the threat response before it can spiral into avoidance. Step 4 is killing the comparison autopilot. You grew up on leaderboards and always knew your rank academically, socially, and professionally. That external ranking system became the default way your brain measured whether you were still the smart one. You have to pull that habit out by the root. Replace it with one metric that's based on a simple question. Are you better than you were last week? Your only real competition is yesterday's version of you, not the colleague who got promoted or whoever is announcing wins on LinkedIn. Focus on you, measured against you on a straight line pointing forward. Step 5 is building your proof stack. This is where your new identity gets its actual foundation. Every time you do something hard and don't quit, even when the result is imperfect or nobody else notices, you log it privately. Keep a running record of evidence that you are someone who does hard things consistently. You aren't just someone who is smart, you are someone who finishes and someone who pushes through. Over time, that stack becomes the source your brain pulls from when doubt fires. Instead of asking if you're smart enough, your brain scans a catalog of proof that you show up, you grind, and you complete things. That's how you rebuild the reward loop around behavior instead of talent. And that loop never breaks the way the old one did. Lesson 5, the compounding return. When you're running the upgraded system, the returns don't just add up, they multiply. When your brain stops burning energy on identity protection and redirects it toward the work itself, the first thing you notice is how much mental space opens up. Tasks that used to trigger a stress response start feeling like problems worth solving. Struggle stops feeling like a referendum on your worth and starts feeling like useful information. You adjust, you move, and you actually finish things. Then something shifts even deeper. As the proof stack grows and the comparison autopilot quiets down, the work itself becomes the reward for the first time in years. It's no longer about the praise at the end or the rank it earns you. It's about the actual doing of the task. That's what performance psychologists call intrinsic motivation. And it's the only kind of fuel that doesn't run out. You were never short on talent. You were just short on the right system to carry it. You were never broken. You were just running a glitchy, outdated operating system, but now you have the cheat code. The version of you that operates from process instead of identity doesn't just win more. They actually start to enjoy the grind again. And that is the real prize.
Now listen, if you find this information helpful, why keep it to yourself? Subscribe for more game-changing insights and share this with that friend who keeps saying they'll start tomorrow. You could be the angel they've been waiting for. Let's build a community of relentless learners and doers. Now get out there and make it happen. I believe in you. Thank you.